Billy back here with Broship of the Nerds, and I will be reviewing episode 2 of Pretty Little Liars Summer School, Summer Lovin', and it is happening so fast. So, this episode, a lot goes down. Tabby meets, and this won't be in order, Tabby meets a new guy named Christian who was hired by Westwood Theater, and she's having deja vu because Chip worked with her and they were best friends. At least she thought that he was a good guy. And so the trauma of that is being replayed really well in this episode. And it comes full circle because Christian appears to be nice. He's really into films. He's really into special effects and that sort of thing. So Tabby is having a hard time being trusting of this new guy, even though she wants to be, because he does seem like a good guy. So I like the way that they're doing that she is trying to live through her trauma. Um, Bloody Rose is leaving roses everywhere. Imogen and is having a really, really hard time this episode. This episode is really her kind of like struggle episode. She The five girls end up in summer school, and they're all in section A except for Imogen, who's in section B, and she's really having a hard time because she needs her friends to help her with things. And in the meantime, they're trying to get her anxiety medicines just right because she's having hallucinations. Like she's seeing who she thinks is Bloody Rose, but it could also be her mom. And she gets a job at a diner by her close to where her dad lives, and she gets a name tag that says Lee because she wants to create a new identity because it helps her like basically forget about some of the problems that she deals with and the trauma that she has been through. And we sort of learn later on in the episode like what the deal is, basically what her thought process is. And there's a scene where she's waiting for the bus, and Bloody Rose is walking across from the woods with a knife, and she thinks she's hallucinating and gets on the bus and gets out of there. But in reality, Bloody Rose is real, and she's actually a really terrifying villain this season. Like she is better with technology. They're using the computers and everything, which we'll get to by the end of the episode. But I think this season's killer is scarier just because of how calculating she is. Whereas in season one, we had Principal Clanton as the mastermind behind Archie. This season, I'm getting Scream vibes, right? So I'm thinking there's more than one. There's maybe two killers, and there's a couple of people on my radar, and we will get into that at some point. I will share my theories in this video. In the meantime, Noah has a person from her past show up. So Jennifer shows up, and we find out that the two of them actually were together in juvie, and that Noah and her were into each other. So possible female love interest for Noah, because Jennifer asks if Sean's still in the picture, and Noah says he's around. Now, and she asks for her number now, and she asks questions about if she was one of the people that went through everything that had happened in Millwood. And she said, yeah, it was all kinds of effed up. And I like Noah. She's actually my favorite character this season because of her bluntness and just how real she is and how she just doesn't hold anything back and like cusses and tells it like it is. I really like that about her this season. I mean, she's even more like that this season than last season. And I feel like her character is the most like just straightforward. She kind of reminds me of Hannah from the original series, where it's just like tell it like it is. I'm really liking that about her this season. So I'm looking at the highlights because I've obviously have watched episode 2 and 3 since then, and I don't want to get anything really mixed up. Oh, Farron gets a job at the community pool as the only female lifeguard, and she is being named. Well, she has a race against Greg, and just blows him out of the water, literally. And Greg gets jealous of her, And in the meantime, she still hasn't told Henry that she's been cleared for dance, but she tells him that she has been cleared to be a lifeguard. I'm turning my AC up a little bit so it's not as cold, guys. Freezing. There we go. Um, so that is going on with her. And also people are giving out their numbers, right? So Tabby's number has went to Christian. He seems pretty trustworthy, actually. Noah's given her number to Jennifer, which she's on my radar as possibly one of the Bloody Roses because she kind of looks like she could be that build if they are going for more than one. The number, let's see who else gives out their number. So Noah to Jennifer, and just different people are giving out their numbers. Farron gives hers out to the coach, which I don't know how to feel about him yet. It's like he likes Farron more than as a friend. Like I said, I'm also reading the synopsis online because it has been a bit since I've watched this, so my apologies. Um, oh, so at one point, Imogen self transfers to Section A and gets sent back to Section B, but she's having a hard time, and Section B is full of just like delinquents and stuff. So that's a little bit rough for her as well, because she doesn't really know anyone there. And then we also see in Section A when attendance is called by Mrs. Gibbons, Nick Brody and Sabrina Hooper were missing, and they were killed by Bloody Rose in the last episode. At the very end, they were that couple that was attempting to hook up, and Noah basically confronts Jen, and they're basically like, "Hey, what happens in juvie stays in juvie," kind of thing. So Noah is kind of torn between, I think, Sean and Jennifer because she likes both of them, and she's been in a relationship with Sean for a long time, but you get the hint that or feeling that she does have something for Jennifer. They the girls meet with Dr. Sullivan from the original series, and basically them being split up was not part of the plan, and they're calling it lame because it's not part of the hot girl summer plan. And Dr. Sullivan, of course, is really helpful for them and is doing good. And she tells them, you only have classes in the morning, so get an afternoon job or a summer fling or something. So she's telling them to live a little bit on top of their just like morning, summer school. That it's not the end of the world. And then Imogen goes to her dad to get a list of medicines that her mom was on, and he does his best to help fill in the blanks of what her mom was on to try to find like if there's any sort of patterns that were similar to her mom. So there's that. She's trying to help her. We find out Christian actually had just moved from New York, and he was a projectionist just like Chip was, but he worked at multiple theaters. And Wes wants Tabby to show him the ropes, and they connect pretty quick. Then we have Noah and Jen catching up, and it was all crazy kinds of effed up. And like I said, she confirms she's still seeing Sean. And then Tabby's showing Christian like what is expected at the Orpheum. And so he's basically like, oh, this is just like the AMC. And so basically, they're just basically similar, and that's pretty straightforward. And then she tells him that horror really isn't her thing, which is completely a lie. And then, of course, um, okay, so Kelly is at Our Mother of Holy Grace, and the pastor's giving a sermon along with Kelly's mom, and is excited about everyone wanting to participate in Redemption House. And Greg is saying that this is just crazy, and he's wanting to just like hook up and do teenage stuff, and Kelly is trying to like get him to change. And Greg, he has his moments, and then he has other moments, a lot of moments where it's like, ew, no. So, like, I want to like him, but he's a typical, like, horny guy, right? So, just like, there are moments where he can be okay, and there are moments where you're just like, oh my God. He's not as bad as Tyler, though. Tyler was awful, but Greg is sort of like, he definitely needs to mature and grow up. So, we're hoping that'll happen. And then Sandy is is really trying to pull Greg from Kelly, explaining that Greg has his needs basically. Noah talks to Sean and admits that, hey, her mom's still in rehab, but she had to get away. And Sean said, what, because of my mom? So he understands like how tough it is to be around his own mom. So that tells you that there's an issue there. So Noah was just, she apologized for lying, but her mom will be home for real, but then they have the place to themselves whenever he comes over. So that kind of helps him accept it a little bit more. And then Tabby's looking through Christian's Instagram and Imogen's like, hey, he's cute. And she accidentally likes one of the pictures and it's on Tabby's phone. So it's actually Tabby's account liking it. So Tabby kind of like freaks out and Imogen says, hey, just follow him and you can say you were admiring his work or whatever. So that was interesting. And Elodie is giving a list of rules while her and Shirley are away to Mouse, and Lola is going to be um, watching her, and they want Mouse to show her around the pawn shop, and Lola winks that she's going to do what she can to help her. Greg and Kelly are rehearsing for the play, and they're kissing because the script says so, but Greg is like trying to go too far, and Kelly's telling him to stop. So Greg leaves in anger, and then Mouse is going through the pawn shop, looking at the dolls, or dusting them, and then Lola is asking her about spooky spaghetti. And the Mouse puts two and two together about Nick and Sabrina's absence, and that was interesting. They're trying to figure out if Bloody Rose is real, and um, that got interesting as well. Noah finds a rose in her locker, and she assumes it's from Jen, but she just throws it back into the locker. And then Tabby wants to know if the girls want to go surprise Imogen at at her new job at the diner, and they're all like, "Yeah, sure." But you could tell like Mouse is distracted by everything with Bloody Rose. The tryouts happen, and Farron, like I said, beats him in the race. And then Greg approaches her and asks why she's there instead of the dancing school, and that the coach only hired her because she's eye candy. And then Farron says, "No, I have to pick up your slack because you're so damn useless." And then he asks, "Is this your way of flirting with me?" And obviously, Farron's not into Greg. And then Noah's working at Pinball Pizza, and the manager asks if he should hire Jennifer, and she's like, "Yeah, Jennifer's cool." So Jennifer's going to be working there. Wes and Christian are talking about horror, and Imogen, or not Imogen, Tabby just can't take it and it explains they're both wrong and why. And then they're like, for someone not being in horror, that she sure knows a lot. And then Wes says that she's a real life final girl. So, Wes, you want him to have a redeeming arc, but he's sort of like, I don't know, now that he's quit hitting on her, he's still sort of kind of dumb in a way, or naive basically. Like he just sort of blurts out things. He doesn't really have much of a filter. So I don't know. I'm still hoping that Wes has some redeeming qualities in him later. Image is working at Rocky's diner when the girls arrive and surprise her, but they see that she is wearing a different name tag, and Mouse suggests she applies at the Millwood Creamery instead, since she likes ice cream. And then she has to get back to work and everything. Um, okay, so Mouse and Ash are asleep, and they hear Lola screaming. They run out and ask, or Lola asks who Ash is, and Mouse says that's her boyfriend. And they said, "What's wrong?" And Lola says that she saw a woman outside looking in. Ash runs to check and doesn't see anybody. And Lola says, it's someone with bloody bandages on her face. And she shows a picture of Bloody Rose, and she's like, "Yeah, that's it." But by the next morning, Lola's making breakfast for them, and she goes, "Who is Ash?" And she goes, "You remember you met him last night?" And she doesn't remember it and says she's sleepwalking, which she does sometimes. But I'm getting the impression that Lola has dementia because there are like several things that I don't think she would do to Mouse that happens with this episode and episode 3, which we'll be getting into in the next video. But it just does seem like there's something going on with her mentally. Imogen insists that she's okay and that she shows up to Section A again, and Farron thinks she's like turned up and is real stressed, and Imogen says, "No, I'm good." Mrs. Gibbon comes in and reprimands her for being in the wrong section, so all the girls leave, and Imogen spills what's wrong, and she said, she just wants to be the girl that didn't lose her mom to suicide and, wasn't assaulted and all this other stuff, and they reassure her that they love her for who she is and values her friendship, and she's worried that she's going crazy like her mom, and the girls are saying, "No, be yourself, we love who you are." And you know it was just a really rough episode for her, but she's going through trauma as well as Tabby. All the girls are from being chased by Archie in season 1. And then Kelly finds out she's playing the Virgin Mary, and Sandy and Greg are playing the premarital sex teens. And Sandy rubs it in that he has his needs and they need to be released as God intended. And then we get to where Tabby and Christian are organizing the film files by genre and year per Wes's orders. And he wants to watch her film that she made, her short film, and put it on the screen. And he goes, "Wait, you haven't done that yet for like your friends and family?" And so he sets up a film premiere, which I thought was really cute. I really like them two together. I'm hoping Christian doesn't have any major skeletons in the closet because I'm rooting for this couple here. Uh, Farron is getting ready for is sitting for her tryouts, and she reaches into her bag, cutting her fingers, and finds that there's a rose in there. And then Henry shows up and they argue. And she's like, "I've got this." And she punches Greg in the face for making fun of Henry. And then Coach Rhodes pulls her into the office and said, "I told you to knock some sense into the guys, but not literally. And not to lose her cool because she's a captain." And she says, "Hey, just for lack of judgment, I'm not going to fire you, but you need to be more careful." But she's been promoted to captain. And Imogen talks to Dr. Sullivan about how hard her days have been and the grief. And Dr. Sullivan reassures her, you're not a lost cause or anything. And she decides to help talk to the summer school to get Imogen in with her friends. Um, Meanwhile, Noah introduces Jen to Sean, and you know, uh, basically they talk about how Noah saved Jen and Juvie and helped her keep her sanity. And Sean's very sweet and nice to Jen and says, "I'm sure she would say the same about you." So he's pretty cool. Um, but I still don't fully trust her yet. And then Farron tells Henry not to interject anymore, and Henry says he'll join the youth group at the church since they need more guys. He might check that out. And then the movie Avenge, Tabby's film, gets a glitzy premiere and a sign where her friends come in and watch. And Noah thinks Christian is like trying to be romantic and everything. And Tabby is still nervous because Christian hasn't seen like the subject matter of her film. Kelly confronts Greg about spending time with Sandy, and he says he's not doing anything with her yet, and that Sandy's a good listener, doesn't judge. And she says, "Hey, I can do a lot of things for you, even though we can't have sex. I can still do things for you." And he's like, "Oh, Sandy who?" And the Liars Watch Avenge, which basically is a revenge story of them going after Chip, but he's called Chet in this film, and Imogen stars in it, so that was pretty cool. They all decide to make plans to meet at Pinball Pizza for the after party, but the girls make excuses to give them time alone together, so Christian can walk Tabby home, and they talk about like what their favorite movies are, good and bad, like what bad movies they enjoy, like their guilty pleasures. Imogen enters the Millwood Creamery and she meets Johnny, who gives her an application and fills out to work there. And she tells her real name, but she gets a call from an unknown caller, and it's not Johnny because Johnny's right there when it happens, so we know it's not him. And then Farron gets a call. Noah gets a call while she's in bed with Sean. Sandy's waiting for Greg to show up, and he says he's not going to make it, that he's with Kelly. And then she basically sends some nasty texts back, and then she is killed by Bloody Rose, who stabs her multiple times. And then Mouse gets an unknown call. She declines it. And then a video chat request from Bloody Rose Waters, and she accepts it. And it's a distorted voice, but she goes, "You're going to need to save your breath. You're going to need it." So Bloody Rose is on the prowl, and the girls are in danger. So that was episode 2, Summer Lovin'. And my assessment of it, this was a very good setup episode. Episode 1 was like the consequences of season 1. This episode is introducing us some new characters and also setting up potential season romances, and some the same, some new, and it's giving us a build up for the rest of the season. And I think they did a great job considering I have seen episode 3 at the time of this video. And so it's a very good segue from episode 1 to 2 to 3. So 2 is like a bridge episode, right? Where it connects 1 to 3. And I really thought they did a good job of setting everything up. And I'm curious to see where the rest of the season goes. Well, that was episode 2's review, Summer Lovin', and I will be reviewing episode 3 shortly, as well as a book review. So thank you for your time.